Hello, everyone. Welcome to meeting 12 of Adapted Toys for Children. This is our second to last meeting, and we'll be going over a little bit as to what our final meeting will look like at the end of this meeting. But yeah, let's get into what we're going to be doing this week. Some updates. We're going to run through those real quick. Got some cool stuff going on with the tabling event this week. We finally had the learning session together on Autism Acceptance Month. For those of you who've been here the last couple of meetings, you might know that I've been mentioning this. Had to push it back due to getting it reviewed. But I've been mentioning it a couple weeks, but I can finally get it out this week, hence the Spider-Man meme there, if you guys like that movie, because no meme is funnier than when you have to explain it. Anyway, so yeah, and then we'll hopefully be getting into groups for probably the last time this semester. Next week, we're going to be going over some things in not groups, but again, that's later. So yeah, running through updates real quick. We have our tabling event going on right now. We have 1 day left. Judging by the rain, I'm not super confident that we're going to have one of our tables out tomorrow, but we will definitely have one in the Honors College. If you want to come by, say hi, donate, help promote our club. We are gathering members and we are collecting donations as well. So that's actually been going really well so far this semester, or not semester, these last few days. We've gotten over $200 in funds, and we've gotten about a dozen or so members interested. And those are just the people who've shown interest so far. There's been people who've been like, oh yeah, I'll pass this on to other friends. There's been people who said they're going to donate later. And then there's people who, there's the people who donated online and through the online donation system. That stuff takes a while to update for us. So those funds haven't even been accounted for yet. So a really good event, all things considered, for one that wasn't crazily promoted and it's just come down to a couple tables. It's been going pretty well. Toy drop-offs are happening now. If you have a toy on you and yeah, basically if you have a toy on you, please return it fully assembled by this week. If you're not sure about the times, check the GroupMe chat. I posted the times in there. I will be in Stewart at those times this week by our locker. If you need guidance, again, just DM me or something comes up. But yeah, let me know when you plan on returning it, and please have that back this week. We cannot let people keep those over the summer. And a reminder, we do have one meeting left, but I've already mentioned that twice by now. So yeah, let's just save that for the end. But yeah, here we go. So Autism Acceptance Month. This is going to be kind of like a general overview of a lot of the different aspects that come in with having autism and the world and how the world treats people with autism. A lot of this info was sourced from the ASAN, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. So if you want to confirm any of the information I'm speaking of here, a lot of the information is on that website, or if you just want to learn more. Also, for the sake of this presentation and consistency, I will be using person first language. I know that Jasmine mentioned identity and person first language at the last meeting, but just for the sake of consistency, I'm going to be using person first with this meeting. Anyway, so yeah, this is a slide that should be pretty familiar. I've shown it a couple times before, but just for reminding everyone, this month is Autism Acceptance Month. Autism Acceptance Day was April 2nd, pretty early in the month. It's also known largely as Autism Awareness Month, officially, technically, but I do think a good chunk of the community is trying to get it changed to acceptance, because we all know what autism is to some degree. It's just a matter of changing the world around us to better accept those with autism. We got the symbol over to the right there. And as I mentioned, it's a month of connecting with people with autism and actually raising them up and learning from their stories and trying to understand them as best we can. For the sake of growing as a community. All right, so into some new stuff. This is going to be a pretty dense PowerPoint presentation, so if I stop to drink some water, bear with me. But yeah, so a good general definition of autism that I think is pretty good of what it boils down to is people with developmental disabilities, which can affect how they move, talk, socialize, and view the world. These are just a few examples of how it can affect them. And notice the word affect not being necessarily positive or negative, just being neutral, more or less. And to get some harsher truths out there first, I am going to keep this presentation largely positive, or at the very least neutral, but I would feel like this isn't that great of a presentation if I didn't get some of these things out there first to at least acknowledge. So to get some harsher truths out there first, for global context, our society treats people with disabilities as outsiders, more or less, not providing them with proper supports in hopes that they'll conform to neurotypical standards. So like say we want these people to act more like us, even if they physically or mentally can't. This could come in the form of more casual bullying. This can come in the form of not giving people the access they need. In some more serious cases, such as police being more likely to have violent encounters with people with autism. And then, needless to say, there's actual bullying, household neglect, schools, other groups, a lot of different scenarios where people can face different bullying scenarios and discrimination on a daily basis. Today, hopefully, we'll be neglecting or negating these harmful mindsets by learning from the perspectives of the autistic community. So to kind of go into that, I mentioned before how like some general ways that autism can affect the brain and how people communicate, function generally. And so these next couple slides are going to kind of go over how these like some examples of that. So a big one is executive functioning. So this is kind of like these kind of tie into a lot of the aspects of the brain and the mindsets that get you with being productive, basically. So plan following, starting something new, keeping on track, stuff like that. And executive functioning skills can be kind of an issue for people with autism. And this can kind of lead to some miscommunication at times because on the surface, it might seem like they're being lazy. If we saw kind of a neurotypical person just kind of like lazing about, not really being able to stay on track, we might try to remind them to stay on track or yell at them because of it. So it might be good just to remember that, you know, these people aren't being lazy, they just might need extra support. And there can be some miscommunication there. Another thing being special interests. I've met a few people in my life with these types of special interests. This basically is like more or less just a source of joy and engagement for the person. It could last a week, just a week, or years. It might be all they spend their time thinking about. It might not be all that they want to think about. I knew a child who loved playing Transformers on his own. I knew a kid who wouldn't stop talking about dinosaurs, and it was really cute. And yeah, so these interests are basically, it's I don't want to say it's common, but it's definitely just a trait that people with autism can have. So moving on to other thinking differences, we have like an example of meltdowns and shutdowns, which can lead to other forms of miscommunication, as we'll get to in a second. So meltdowns and shutdowns are basically when too much stress or sensory overload can impact this person. This may cause them to cry, lose control, run away, or just stop talking and moving in general. And where the miscommunication can come in is when you start to think that these might be something like tantrums. So if we had children of our own, and they start misbehaving and not listening to us, we might want to discipline them. We might want to tell them no. We might want to teach them, hey, this is how we act in this specific scenario, and be more strict if we need to. But that doesn't necessarily work with this, because these aren't solved by control. It's just the person they lose control. They don't have a choice over their own motor functions or how their brain works in this case. And a little note that was added here was all behavior is some form of communication. As human beings, everything we do somehow communicates. We frown, it usually means we're sad. We smile. For neurotypical people, this means we're happy. These behaviors are all telling you that the person needs something. And this is what meltdowns and shutdowns are really about. This might mean that they can't, like some results of this might be that they can't talk or move. And like things that they might need are for you to turn the music down, for you to dim the lights. They might need a hug, just something simple. And that all comes down to knowing the individual and what they usually need and what sets off certain meltdowns and shutdowns, because they're not always the same. Other cases of just thinking differences might be they might have a really good memory. They might notice small differences, like say you move a mug on your desk a few degrees and they somehow notice that without even seeing that you moved it in the first place. They might prefer a really strong routine to go about their daily life. And in terms of socializing, they might not notice the unspoken rules or nonverbal cues that we have in our life. So like it's more or less an unspoken rule that like say you don't scream out loud in a library, you don't walk naked in the park, you don't leave your friend's show or performance in the middle of it. These are things that we don't necessarily need to say, but are just kind of things that we know. And this kind of ties back to like they might not be able to guess how we're thinking. So people with autism might not know these things or be able to derive these things on their own. At least some of them, I mean. And this isn't to say they're not empathetic. It just means that they think differently and might need extra support or clarification in a couple scenarios. So moving on, we have sensory processing. So everyone processes senses differently. Every human being needs something for their brain to go off of. A lot of us know the five main senses: touch, smell, taste, hearing, vision. But autistic people can sometimes rely on other senses such as pressure, hunger, pain, temperature, like hot and cold, and just simple balancing. These are things that can tell them when something is off, when it might just be a simple on-off signal that tells them to do something. And it could also be a thing that they might be more tuned to than we are, such as super bright lights, loud noises. I put shirt tags here as an example because they could be extra annoying for someone who doesn't want to deal with shirt tags. Food texture, you might not want to eat a food if it doesn't feel right to you. So these are just a couple examples of how people can process the senses. And something that relates to this, which is something that I didn't actually know the specific term for, but recognized it immediately as I heard the specific definition, is stimming. And this is basically repeating a movement, and that's meant to be as general as it sounds. So people with autism may do these things to balance the senses or just simply to feel better. And what repeating movements might occur are, say, like rocking back and forth in a chair or on the ground, flapping your hands, humming or moaning, or singing. And this can kind of lead to some other miscommunications as well, like in a situation where, I mean, people don't typically like moan on their own or flap their hands, but this is just something that people do to sometimes comfort themselves, and that's totally fine. Everyone stims to some degree. No one's real. I don't think a lot of people are really immune to this. A lot of people tap their foot a lot. You might click a pen and you're not even thinking about it. This is just kind of an extension of that, more or less, in that this is just something that people do to focus or calm down, stuff like that. And it's just a pretty common example of how people can act. Communication. So kind of tying back to one of the notes I had before, all people with autism communicate, they just don't all speak. So people communicate a lot of different ways, as I mentioned before, with emotion or with facial expressions alone, but this goes into other things. So there's a variety of ways that I mentioned right here that people with autism may speak with. For example, they might think, or no, sorry. So one reason why they may not want to talk outright is because maybe they physically can't or just don't feel like it. As neurotypical people, we might take advantage of the fact that we're able to start or stop talking on a whim. Not really much thought or effort put into that. But it's something that ties into our work is just motor functions. We know typically the motor functions of the fingers and hands and feet applies a lot of what we do with the button projects, but that can actually apply to like the jaw and the vocal cords with how people speak. So usually starting up and stopping talking might be more difficult for some people with autism, or at least non-speaking people. So they might not choose to do that. Non-speaking people can include people who stop talking at some point in their life, or people who never spoke at all. And some other examples of ways to communicate are, I believe it's pronounced echolalia. This is basically when you repeat a sentence that you learned earlier. So say I told you to go get bread at the store at 3 o'clock. So in order to remember this, a few hours later, when it's 3 o'clock, they might say something. They might say, "Hey, John, I need you to go to the store," which is what I told them. They're just simply repeating the sentence to, understand, to remember. And then once they're at the store, they might say, "To get bread," something like that. That's not the perfect example. There's a lot of different, I don't think I'm doing this part justice per se. There's a lot of different formats of this specific thing, but this is just a small example. And then scripting, just as it sounds, you're writing out the words you want to say. but you're going to write it out before you say it. This could allow for better processing time or just more time to kind of get your thoughts together and all that stuff. And then, of course, something that we see a lot of, well, at least with Jasmine and Christy, who both came in, are AAC, which is AAC, which is augmentative and alternative communication using other forms to communicate. This can be like high tech, like using an iPad with a bunch of different buttons to tell you what you need, or like a low tech solution, which might be like a plastic board with just random things on it that you might commonly need. And then there's sign language, typing, and a few other ways to communicate. A little moving on. Kind of shifting into a broader sense over here, I want to mention a bit about kind of what we typically think of autism and how to sort of debunk a few of those theories. So what the spectrum is and isn't, at least in a term way of thinking about it, is how it's commonly seen, at least in common terminology that I've seen throughout my life, is like a straight line going from high functioning to low functioning. And that's just simply not entirely the case. It's very easy to think of it that way. But when you think about it, putting labels on people based on how they function can kind of seem demeaning in a sense if all you were characterized as is low functioning, for example. So terms like high functioning and low functioning, mild or severe autism, can force these people into labels. And even if you just meant it super casually and weren't even thinking about it, this can still impact how others view them as, like, say, oh, you're the person with severe autism, I have big pity on you, or something like that. And if you're highly autistic, this might like impact the level of assistance you can get. So like, say someone's able to provide care for people with autism, oh, you're high functioning, you don't need this wheelchair or something, you're fine, you're highly functioning. That can also be a problem at the other end of the spectrum. But yeah, people with autism hold all kinds of traits, and generally the consensus going around with that community is it shouldn't be seen, no trait should particularly be seen as better or worse. And if you do need to distinguish, which is totally fine for the sake of our work, you might want to instead distinguish them by their specific disability or their trait, such as non-speaking or having an intellectual disability, for example. And some more myths and misconceptions that I wanted to touch on were just the idea that autism is sad. Hopefully a good amount of you guys don't like already think this, and if you do, then hopefully this helps teach you another perspective of it. So a lot of the consensus that people might think is that autism is sad. It might be something to automatically pity, when in reality, people with autism can have just as many strengths as weaknesses, if not more. And it's people who around us who treat something normal or something different from the norm as bad. So we might take pity on it if it's like different or sad. And that's not good necessarily to separate those who are different from us, of course. And another myth or misconception is that people are born into or out of autism. It might be sometimes weird to picture an adult with autism just because the media usually only shows kids with autism. There are plenty of adults out there with autism, and they do things that neurotypical adults do. They have sex, they have jobs, they do things that fully mature adults do. So it can be kind of demeaning at times when sometimes people say, oh, he has the mind of a 5-year-old. That's just not true or even fair. And yeah, this might sound obvious that, like, yeah, of course there are autistic adults out there, but I personally can't picture that many in my mind, at least through images, because I feel like a lot of the media and advertisements usually do show children, because a lot of that's geared towards parents and stuff. Another obvious thing is that women and people of color also can also have autism. They're just less likely to be diagnosed. Some partial reason that I saw for this is that the definition of autism was based on young white boys. And so when you kind of extrapolate that to other communities, that might lend certain professionals or other people to misdiagnose them with something else other than autism. And then a couple other notes here at the end. Obviously, if you are autistic, that doesn't mean you have an intellectual disability. If you're autistic, that doesn't mean you're non-speaking. So yeah, like for all you know, the person could be smarter than you. They could be thinking about a lot more things than you. I just kind of wanted to emphasize that. not just because you're autistic doesn't mean you have this specific trait. And in addition, non-speaking people can obviously be actively thinking and caring, of course. They just might not be able to communicate it in the same way that we do. And then kind of taking a turn into the more general things of positive aspects are the themes and aspects of the autistic community movements. So like, say, for example, nothing about us without us. This is a big part of of laws and policy making and kind of just spreading the word about what autism is and isn't. Because generally when you are preparing something about someone, they should at least be involved to some degree in the communication of it. So say you're writing a law about what autistic people, what care they can get, autistic people should get some kind of feedback in that, you know? That's pretty obvious, but sadly something that doesn't always happen. Some general words here, but stuff that has a lot of impact: inclusion, which I mentioned before, autonomy, and dignity. Society should provide, the tools and accommodations needed for everyone to do what they want. It's easy to say that, oh yeah, everyone's equal, but if we don't treat them as equal, if we don't provide people with wheelchair ramps or the proper environments to work in on their own, then that's not really giving them equal opportunities that we say we're giving them. And then, of course, respect, which ties back into dignity, which is all about respecting their privacy, respecting their bodies and methods of communication. If these people are deaf or hard of hearing, we need to be able to communicate with them in a way that they're comfortable with, respecting their privacy and their bodies. If they're like stimming and say waving their arms in the air, that's not a call for us to pull down their arms or something to get them to stop waving, because you wouldn't do that to a neurotypical person. That can be considered assault in some cases. But yeah, I mean, just to get a little bit serious here, to drill that in your mind, yeah, like a lot of this does involve respecting them and treating them as equals, not just saying they're equals. And then, taking their viewpoints seriously and don't assume things based on how they seem. If they're not speaking or just seem like they're just standing there, there could be a lot going on the inside. You have no idea. And kind of just tying this back to the work that we do, I wanted to draw a couple parallels here. So notice that what we're doing is fundamentally built around tailoring our world to be more accepting of those who are different. We're not forcing these kids to play with toys that we always play with, because obviously the average toy might not be suitable for someone with autism or another disability. We are tailoring our world to make them, just make it easier to have them have all the same opportunities as every other kid. And hold on, give me one second, sorry. What this because a lot of other people aren't doing it. We have toy companies who are still providing toys out there with no proper aux ports that have the same connections to buttons. That's a very easy adaptation to make, not from our perspective, but if you're designing a toy, obviously the wiring inside out. Connecting an aux port shouldn't be that difficult to at least have that option available. And yeah, that's just an example. And going off of that at the same time, I do want to emphasize that in a way, we are not heroes by doing this. I think it's very easy to think and pat ourselves on the back yeah, we're such good people. Look at the work we're doing. And to a degree, yes, what we are doing is super cool. I don't want to downplay that either. But the reason I bring this up is there's a lot of stories out there that say oh, look at this child. This child was provided with a wheelchair. Let's take a focus. Let's interview the person who designed the wheelchair instead of the kid who got the wheelchair. You know what I mean? And it's amazing what we're doing, but the story shouldn't be focused on us. It's not amazing that we went out of our way to help the autistic community and other communities. It's a low bar, and a sadly low bar at that these kids were finally able to get something that suits them. So what we're doing is great, but we are just simply doing our part to solve a problem. And that's admirable. That's really great. I don't want to take away that from anyone. I do just want to emphasize that if there was ever I don't know, a news story about us, that it should be focused around the kids and not us, for example. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was interesting and saw it in a few articles I read. And lastly, to round things out, I wanted to go over a couple other groups to look out for. I believe I mentioned this a couple meetings ago, but wanted to bring it up again because I think it's good. If you want to learn more about this on your own time, feel free to look into a few of these groups, tying back into Nothing About Us Without Us. You can learn about more about autism from people with autism, such as the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, a great group where I learned a lot from this. I learned a lot from this group and took a lot of the information for this PowerPoint from their website if you want to learn more. Communication First, which focuses more on communication-specific disabilities. And if you want something a little bit more local, there's Purdue's All for Autism group. We did a bit of research into Purdue's autism activist groups, and sadly, this is like the main one that came up, but by all means, there could be a couple others that we missed, but this is the main one that we found if you want to maybe getting engaged with that community on campus. And then I have something mentioned here just because when you look up autism advocacy groups, Autism Speaks is like the first one that comes up because it's super popular. However, there's a good amount of controversy around this group for a number of reasons, partly because their leadership isn't made up of, it's barely made up of anyone with autism. It's mostly just neurotypical people and they have some controversial viewpoints. If you want to read more into that, by all means, I just wanted to bring that up in case you do your own research and come across them. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for this presentation, I believe. Yeah, just next is groups. So while I put up groups, does anyone have any questions or notes before I post in the groups? Actually, I notice, hold on, pretty sure. Yeah, Madison, you're the only one in any toy adapting group this week.
Yeah, my group isn't here.
Do you know what happened, Caroline?
I don't know. She usually tells me when she's not going to be here, but my guess is an exam or something.
Okay, yeah, probably. Okay, that's fine. Then I guess we can just all stick to one group today because, yeah, Kate, you're also the only one in the button group, right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Andre today. I saw him earlier today for the project, or for the tabling thing, but whatever. But yeah, I guess we could all just stick around one group. Did anyone have any questions before I move on to something else? Any notes? All right, cool. And I guess we can just chill here for a bit. We got a few people with toys here. And Madison, did you want to bring up what happened with the bubble machine over the weekend?
Sure. So I have spent all semester testing out a variety of different screwdrivers to get out this one screw that is stuck in the bubble machine. So I went to Purdue this weekend. I brought it with me. I was like, let's try the screwdrivers we have. The first one I try takes the screw out like it's nothing. And all these other screws, I was like stripping it with the other screwdrivers. And honestly, those are the best screwdrivers I've ever used. Those blue ones that we have. I was just like, oh, it's coming out. Look at that. All done. 3 seconds. And I've been struggling all semester.
Hear that, guys? ATC has the best tools you could ever need.
Honestly, I'm having the same problem with my toy.
Oh yeah, wait, are you talking about the mouse or the other one?
Both of them, like the screwdriver I have is like too small, so I'm like, I can't take any of them out. So I'm like, okay.
I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Next time we ever, well, hopefully we'll be in person, so we never have to do this again. But hopefully we'll actually match screwdrivers to their specific toys next time. Did not consider that.
Yeah, it's fine. I manage. No.
Oh wait, also Michelle, while I have you here, did you listed on the form, I think that you could only come today to return your toy?
Oh yeah, yeah, I had like a meeting and I was kind of swamped with projects, so I kind of forgot about it. But I did send you a group meet that I will be there like tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, yeah, sorry. That's fine. Just as long as you can come, I wasn't sure if you were available.
Yeah.
Sweet. Does anyone else have any other notes on their toys?
So one thing that I was gonna modify about my dinosaur toy was the sound. It's kind of loud. I found that if I put a little bit of electrical tape over the speaker, it still made a noise but wasn't so loud. And you said just to check with you before I did that. So
Um, it still sounds like normal, right? Like there's not like a crazy vibrations or anything if you put it over.
yeah, it still sounds like a dinosaur yelling.
Okay, cool.
And then the other thing, just really quick, you said you want all the toys to be fully put back together when we return them?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I will
sorry.
start working on that then. The screws are kind of long. And I still have Joe's screw kit. Can I return that for her, or does she need to return it?
Oh, like her screw kit that we loaned out to her?
Yeah,
Sorry, wait, Joe, I can't.
because she gave it to me to borrow because I couldn't open up the dinosaur with the screw kit I got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are my personal screwdrivers.
Oh, those are your personal. Sorry, never mind then. I take it back.
Yeah.
I will get those back to you. Can I just come by after the meeting?
That sounds
Sweet.
great because I have to reassemble my toy too, so that'll work.
Okay. I'll put mine together then and then head over there.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the dinosaurs in particular are annoying, but like, if we're gonna start up on it again, also not all the officers are familiar with all the toys, so putting it back together can be a bit annoying. So I appreciate it. All right. Anyone else have any notes? I'm guessing the cars aren't coming out super great at the moment.
The car,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
like, low key gave up. I don't want to ruin it a bit more.
Yeah, it's fine. One of the perks of meeting up in person is that if you give up on a toy or run into a problem, you move on to another toy.
Mhm.
That's something we haven't been able to do this semester
Yeah,
for obvious reasons. But yeah, I'm building up a lot of hype for this whole next semester thing. I really, really hope we can meet in person.
yeah. I hope so too. I think it would also be neat to try like work on more electrical stuff and like soldering, like doing those things together as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you got one of the few mechanical ones, like few completely mechanical ones this semester. But usually, like JP, Joe, they all have wiring stuff. Yeah, some of the messages that I've seen in the interest form that we've been giving out to people who are interested in the club, like some of them leave comments like, yeah, I really want to work with CAD, or I want to work with the electrical stuff. I really want to work with kids, and I'm like really excited because when people have interest, it's pretty cool. And a bunch of stuff like that. And then even the people who like weren't interested or didn't donate, almost everyone said something like, or like everyone who read at least, it's all like, oh yeah, you guys at least like, I can't help, but this is a really cool idea, or like this is a really cool club. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. If we can't get money or members, at least we're a good cause.
Did we want to maintain the original button on the toy or just add in a new one?
What's the current button like?
It's literally 3 wires.
Oh,
It's 1 wire from the button to the motor, 1 wire from the button to the battery, 1 wire from the battery to the motor.
but like the
It's
current,
like, it could not get more simple.
okay. And the current, but like the current
Like
button, is it big? Or like, I don't know,
it's
like size good?
it's really tiny. It's this little purple spot.
Okay, yeah, I guess we could redo that.
So I was like, it'd be super easy to just literally cut out the button and just put these 2 wires right to the headphone jack.
Yeah.
It would honestly be more complicated to try and keep both of them functional.
No, for sure.
But yeah, this will be insanely simple.
Cool. And we can like maybe drill a hole in his stomach or something, just have a little pop out.
I found a good spot for it on the back. Some of the other stuff that Caroline and I were watching videos of other people doing similar adaptations. one of them made a really good point to put the plug towards the top because there's bubble solution everywhere. So if you want it away from the liquid if you can.
Fair.
But this is like a perfect spot because on the other side of this, there's like this big open gap. And you can put this like face down and drill straight in and not have to worry about hitting anything or like having to hold it in a weird wobbly way.
Right, right.
You can lay it down flat and just drill straight down.
Yeah, it looks super simple,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. Sweet.
Yeah.
Easy enough instructions to make.
This is like perfect for parents to do, honestly.
Right.
Like it could not be easier. And if they didn't have a drill, they could literally just take out this button because the purple button just comes out. I could just put the wires right out the front if they didn't
Like-
have a drill.
Giant gaping hole.
Yeah.
That could work. Hmm.
Probably not a great one, but it's an option.
I wonder if there's like an easy alternative or like a cheaper alternative to buying a drill. Something that we can recommend.
You might be able to like tap through with a nail and hammer,
Maybe.
but it could be difficult with like curved surfaces.
Yeah. True. Maybe a manual drill, but that's probably that's like with the crank.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only real thing that could probably work.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Mhm.
Because a drill might be a big ask.
I feel like most people either have a drill or know someone who has one.
Yeah. Like if you're a typical nuclear family, there's a good chance that you're like someone has a drill.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Ooh, or maybe if they didn't, we can like lend one to the school and like they can, or like give, like buy one for the school and they can lend it out to families.
Potentially.
That's a very specific problem though.
Yeah. I feel like it'd be easier for them to just be like, we want this adapted. Can you drill a hole for us?
True. God, I really want to go visit the school again and meet up with the kids.
I want to like actually see the kids. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I really wonder if our flyers aren't getting anything from the ones I sent to Jasmine. She didn't exactly give me any updates.
What were those flyers again? I don't remember.
Just like our services, like, hey, we adapt things. We will write
Yeah.
instructions if you want them.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get anything.
Maybe she just didn't send them out.
She said she did. Or I don't know. I guess, yeah, I guess that is yet to be proven. Oh, I still need to get in touch with the Patents Project. Those could be people who, or no, that was supposed to replace the AT specialist idea. That's not going to get us more people.
I love the sound of dinosaur in the background.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to put back together because the legs have to line up properly.
Is that the like Tyrannosaurus Rex one? Or Triceratops?
It's the Triceratops.
Yeah. Wrong T. That one is terrible. I once spent like half an hour trying to put it together, and I said I would never touch it again.
The guy from the soldering workshop.
he like ripped that thing apart. Like every single part in there was disconnected. I don't even know how. And he just like brought it back to me and was like, here you go. And I was like,
That's one of the horror stories, which is why we're like, put it back together before you give it back to us, please.
yeah. Like you guys cleaned up the whole workshop and I put together one toy.
Oh my god. We gave toys out because we were like, yeah, we taught you soldering. Now maybe like, I don't know, fin it with a toy, see if you could figure it out. And then one guy figured it out too well. Yeah. Looks like we might have a regular meeting like today. Woo. Fun fact, back when ATC was first starting, half the meetings were either canceled or severely shortened because we were so small.
Cool. Do you guys know any good ways to like make sure a screw is like straight up and down? Because like I'm kind of having to like drop it in and hope that it's lined up because like some of these holes are super deep.
You just
Is there a
hope.
better way to do this? Or am I just hoping?
I feel like you just hope. Or you can like sometimes if you have one of those screwdrivers that are slightly magnetic, they like hold the screws and you can like get it in a little bit more straight. But I feel like that's
Say,
about as much
honestly,
as
if
you
you
can do.
if you rub those screwdrivers on a magnet, they'll probably magnetize because they're mostly metal. So if you wanted to try that, but I think dropping them in is likely gonna get them straight because there's not really much room for them not to be straight. And if you're turning it, it's gonna kind of have to go in.
Yeah, you just gotta like wiggle it around a little bit and it'll
Yeah.
fall in.
Are you having a hard time with it now?
Yeah. I mean, I can't say it's worse than it was like taking it apart, but it's not pleasant.
Fair.
Why did they set them back so far? That like the holes are so deep. For what?
They did not expect us to take it apart, that's why.
Maybe they discouraged it. Oh, I just remembered a toy without screws. Madison, we need to finish the ball popper. Remember that?
Oh gosh, yeah. We already have the bottom designed, don't we? We just need to 3D print it.
It's a flat disc. I just need to. Oh my God, we have a 3D printer guy now. I can send that to John. Oh, actually, I might do that before the semester ends.
I forgot about the ball popper. Ugh, we ripped it apart, and now we get to put it back together.
That one, we literally had to break a piece, and then we had to
Yeah.
3D print another part to fix it, because it had no screws.
I wonder if we should see if there's a way to like reattach it with screws.
Ooh, maybe. Sheer force
Or-
of will.
Yeah, like maybe because it's like a flat piece right now. Maybe just add on like if this is the flat piece, add on just like 2 small vertical pieces on each side with holes in them, and then we can just like drill through the sides of the toy.
There's certain drills that have like a thread thing in them too, I think, right?
Yeah, those are, I think they're taps.
Yeah. We'll see. We might need to go through a couple iterations of the disc, but let's see. I might see if we can get John to print one, because it's just a disc. If it's not too big, he should be able to print it.
It doesn't need to be like really thick or anything either. I don't remember like how big we made it.
Yeah. Oh, also, okay, I'm gonna end the meeting in a second, but button update for anyone who's interested, and Kate, I guess, but we've been having the 3D printed buttons at our tables this week, and they've been tested. They've definitely been tested. We've had a couple of kids come by who see the big red buttons and just start wailing on them.
Yeah, this kid like jumped into it and like smashed it. His parents were like, no, stop. And I was like, it's okay, it needs to be tested.
We need to work it out. And it held. They still work fine.
They worked very well.
We actually had 2 professors and a grad student push on the button. So like if it works for them.
Like they put their weight on it? Or
No, they just pressed it.
Oh, okay.
But it did start singing and they were impressed, so.
Yeah,
well, ours worked for a violent 8-year-old, so.
that is a bigger accomplishment.
All right, we are coming to the end of our time though. Glad we were able to get it out to the full meeting. All right, that is an email. That is homework. That is, where is it? There it is. So one final slide before I wrap things up. Just now I'm going to talk about the final meeting. So the final meeting is next week. It is, well, I'm going to say it's required for officers just because we're probably going to want to discuss some things in the next semester. But if you're not an officer and you have a ton of work to do next semester, it's okay if you need, or for for exams and stuff like that, you have a lot of work for. If you can't come because of other commitments, that's fine. We're not going to make it like, well, we've never made it required for anyone to attend, but this might be a little more optional if you really have things to work on besides that. Because we're mainly going to be discussing kind of like what we did this past semester, recapping all the work we've been able to do in the face of a pandemic, as well as just taking feedback from members to discuss how things are going to be run next semester. So it's going to include groups, probably where we're meeting, maybe, hopefully, probably not that soon, but we'll see. We're going to discuss a little bit of that, how toy adapting will work, because a good amount of you only know it from the pandemic, and things can definitely change. So there will be a lot of changes that come with meeting in person, and we can want to kind of run everyone through it and get everyone excited and get everyone's feedback for what they want to be carried over. Oh, learning sessions, that's what I meant. We want feedback on learning sessions too, hopefully. But yeah, so if you could come, by all means, please come. We would love to discuss this with casual members. And yeah, but it is optional if you can't make it. But yeah, feel free to come out if you can. And don't forget, before we return to this week, I'm sure everyone who's here is diligent enough to remember, but just wanted to say it again anyway. So yeah, thanks guys for coming out. Officers, we got to stick around to discuss some things, but besides that, you guys are free to go. Unless you got any questions, but yeah. If you want any feedback, you're more than welcome to.